Good morning, Gary.
Hi.
I'm having a hard time. I have original sound for musicians selected, but people are not hearing my Mook signal.
Hmm.
I just cannot figure out what I'm doing wrong. I'm just seeing if you have any obvious things that I may have omitted.
Nothing obvious. I'm having a hard time hearing myself because I got a lot of background noise going on my end.
Okay.
You may want to just try the good old-fashioned exiting and coming back in. I don't know if that might help, just to kind of restart it.
Let's do it. All right. I'll see you guys in a bit. Ooh, don't end the meeting for all, though.
Oh, don't do that, no. Woohoo! Got it.
When in doubt, turn it off and turn it back on. Thank you.
I learned that from my video game days back in the 90s.
Yeah, back in the 70s,
unplug
we
it,
used
put
to
it
just
back in,
bang
and
things.
blow it off.
Back in the 70s, we'd have just kicked it.
Yeah, there we go.
My surgery's tomorrow, so I shaved for the first time in decades.
You look shaved.
I feel shaved.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. I'll be well cared for, I'm sure. It's too late to get a tattoo, but I was thinking of pinning a note card to myself, just with a big thank you on it.
It's a nice idea.
You can always do that afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you. My track record with expressing appropriate appreciation after the fact is spotty at best. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning.
Providence Zen.
There we are. Okay, we're back on.
So, given the introductory talk today is Diego. Diego, pronounce your last name, Diego. Diego, pronounce your last name. Villasenor, yeah. So Diego's been here for a while, and he's come up from Florida. He does a lot. Yes, I didn't exactly write his bio, but maybe he can tell us a couple things, and you can feel free to ask him a question or two. And doing the answering questions today is Rebecca Otte JDPSN, and she began studying Zen at the Kansas Zen Center in 1995, and she co-founded the, what is that, Prairyerth Zen Center in 1997 and is currently the abbot there. She began studying with Zen Master Ji Haeng in 2013 and took Bodhisattva precepts in 2015. She received inka in December of 2020. She's a nurse, midwife, and retiring in 2017. She has 2 sons, a daughter-in-law and a grandson. She lives with a husband and 2 cats in Topeka, Kansas. And maybe she'll tell us some stories about how she meets the kids that she delivered as adults today. Okay, good.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everyone here. As Kwan Heng Suni mentioned, I've come up from Florida, both in terms of where I lived before the Providence Zen Center, but also in quite a literal sense. Just about a week ago today, I was down in Florida for about 6 days for a celebration of life ceremony, so a funeral, essentially, that I was down there for. And that's kind of what I want to talk about this morning. So just as kind of a little bit of context, about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a very, very close friend of mine, only about 5 or 6 years older than me, around the age of 41. And I got a call from him and his wife, who I'm also very good friends with, from the hospital, where he informed me that he found out he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And this developed only in the course of a couple weeks for him, where he found out. So I thought, shit, he's only got a couple years left. I need to go down and see him as soon as I can. And then 2 days later after that call, I get a text saying he passed away in the middle of the night. And it really, really shocked me. And honestly, it still does. I don't know if I've fully recovered from that sort of shock yet. And so, of course, as part of this, there was no way I was not going to go down to Florida to be part of this ceremony. And my friend was a professor of religion at a community college down there. And he loved pulling in all sorts of different religious traditions and ideas and beliefs, and really loved working with his students to make them question and kind of expand their minds. And he often would invite me when I lived down there to come give an intro to Buddhism talk in his religious courses. And he didn't want an academic intro to Buddhism. He wanted me to talk about Zen and kind of what we do here, a lot like we do. And so kind of in this memory, they asked that I come down both as his friend and also as a Dharma teacher here to do some chanting for him. So in our tradition, when someone passes away, we do Jijang Boso chanting. And Jijang Boso chanting kind of has 2 meanings to it. There's the conventional reason and meaning behind it, but then there's also the kind of deeper behind-the-scenes meaning. In the conventional sense, when someone passes away, according to Buddhist stories and doctrine, that person kind of exists in a state while they work through their karma before moving on to their next lives. And Jijang Boso is the Bodhisattva of the great vow. He is vowed not to attain enlightenment until all the hell realms are empty and saved. And he has this staff with rings on it, and I've heard that when he shakes the staff, the rings make a noise to scare away the demons that might come and drag the person down to one of the cold Buddhist hell realms. And so we do this sort of chanting during this period, and we repeat Jijang Boso's name to try and, in the formal sense, get his attention. Jijang Boso, pay attention to this guy over here. We like him. Please help him on to his next life kind of thing. And so that's done for a period of days, and then there is a ceremony that's usually held afterwards. So that's the conventional meaning behind Jijong Boso chanting and kind of maybe the cultural context behind it. But there's another reason behind it too, something a little bit more deeper and a little bit more helpful. And Jijong Boso chanting, just like all chanting that we do, is about hearing and perceiving and making sound. And just doing that 100%. And when we do that, it allows us to connect to that place before our thinking, to our original nature, our Buddha nature, where all those things that we're feeling, grief, despair, questioning, we can really become one with it and give expression to it. And that's the crux of a lot of our practice at the end of the day. How can we return back to our original nature, to our don't know mind? And in this mind, as they say, well, actually words kind of fail at this point. But in a certain sense, there really isn't life and there really isn't death. There isn't this idea of me and you. There's just this moment, right here, 100% complete. And so I was experiencing this very acutely, kind of while I was chanting. Actually, I didn't really feel anything while I was chanting down at the ceremony. You sort of just give yourself over to it after a while. Fun fact, about halfway through the chant, I started messing up some of the words, and so I just had to make some kind of Korean-sounding noises for a line or two until I got back on track. And nobody knew any difference. And they all came up to me afterwards to sincerely thank me for it and how much it helped them, and other very, very nice words. And so, again, the meaning of the chant maybe so much isn't important as showing up and giving an expression to it. Because when we return to our don't know mind, when we can really be there 100% with this moment, we kind of invite everything else into it as well. I don't know how, I really don't know why, but something about it seems to connect and resonate with people when we're able to do it. But it also faces us with some really, really big questions. Usually when I address these questions, I say we. But in this very particular instance, it really wasn't a sense of we. It was, I have no idea what happened to my friend. I don't know why in the course of 2 days something changed. And I can't put a finger on what changed, but I'm noticing the change and the absence. And so who is he now to me? Who was he before if he's not just his physical body? And I didn't have a single answer to any of these questions. Not in the kind of, oh, I'm meditating here, don't know, yes, be clear. But I didn't have an answer. I had no answer that could satisfy me with this change and this kind of pang and this loss that I feel. One of the things that I really like about our practice, though, is we don't ever try and push anything away or really hang on to it. And I've kind of valued the experience of being human to be able to hold on to that, to be able to encounter that don't know so clearly and acutely in this particular moment, and to be able to really let it sit with me and kind of process. What I might end with is, there's another kind of saying in our chants, which comes up a lot, and it's De Ja Debi. And it translates to great sadness, great love. And I think that's really what I've been getting out of this sort of transition period with my friend, with his wife going through what she's going through, kind of what I'm experiencing with my loss, is something has changed. And I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't have an answer, but there's this kind of great sadness around it. But out of this great sadness, and out of this really encountering it with a don't know mind. How can I do anything else but care about this moment? This one right here where I am, fully and attentively, with a very natural compassion to it. Because Justin as a teacher left me one great big last lesson. Life and death aren't just some idea. Yeah, they're every single moment. So what is life and what is death and what am I doing? I don't know. But I'm sitting here and I'm talking to all of you today. And that's the crux of the practice. How can we wake up to this moment? And then from that moment, from what arises, how do we use it to kind of help this world that we're in? So I want to thank you all for coming and practicing that. If any of you have lost someone close to you suddenly and unexpectedly, or lost anyone at all, I'm sure you can relate in some way to this series of change. And that's life, one change after another. So how can we be clear? And how can we then use it to kind of go forward? And sometimes there isn't a going forward, there's just crying. There is just crying, and that's okay too. So thank you all.
Thank you, Diego. Kwanzaa Bosol. I'm so sorry to hear about your friend.
Thank you.
That's a hard diagnosis.
Yeah.
Very hard diagnosis. Happens quickly. Do you have any questions? Oh. Do you have any questions?
Diego is speaking about Haeng, and you do a lot of beginnings with your as a midwife. And is there something that you kind of pick up off of that, the beginnings of life with these youngsters, these infants? Some kind of joy, or what is it? What is that?
You know, the first thing that pops up in my head, about 7 or 8 years ago, I was sitting on my patio, and it was a lovely spring day. You know, it was one of those first really warm days after a lot of cold days, right? And so there wasn't a lot of greenery yet, but there was beginning to be buds on the trees, and the grass was beginning to get green, right? And I cried, because winter was right around the corner. So every single one of those babies that I delivered has death already embedded in them, right? You know, when you're part of that cycle and you see it so frequently, baby after baby after baby, and then you know, I had good fortune to be part of some hospice times as well, to sit with dying. And you realize it's just this wonderful cycle. You know, it's just one thing into another. That's why when I started Zen practice and started studying so much, it was kind of gratifying to know that life and death are in every single moment, right? So life and death of all the thoughts in my head, you know, they arise, they're there for a bit, then they go away, right? Even now, just with us sitting here, thousands of cells are dying, and thousands of cells are being reborn, changing, right? It's just this wonderful life cycle. Yeah, you asked about earlier about the story of this young woman that I saw, that I delivered. Washburn University is in Topeka, Kansas, and the religion professor brought his class, about 30 people, into Prairyerth Zen Center. And So I spent an hour talking about Zen and practice and all of that. And then after it was all over, one of the girls got up and said, "My name is Piper, and you delivered me 22 years ago." So that was really very heartwarming to see this beautiful young woman who I had delivered, and see her interest in Zen and her interest in religion. And that happens actually quite a bit because Topeka isn't that large of a city. So I see a lot of babies that I've delivered who are now becoming full-fledged adults. So, are there any other questions?
I would like to say something.
Sure.
When someone close dies, it has consequences on his family, and for me, it's real pain. It's real pain inside. And while it happens, we start to explain Buddhism, and we live next life. We don't live, but the pain is there. We try logically to give. To explain that it's okay, you're gonna live other lives and to continue, but it's a pain. So it's good that we sit together to share. We can talk about the pain also. We should not just talk about how things are good and gonna be that this person is going to a good world or whatever. We can talk also about the thing that society doesn't want us to speak about pain, about our sorrow, that we can even get lost if somebody dies. Some people lose their mind because a new person dies. Yeah. So when we sit together, we can achieve this, and this gives us better center in such situations because we know the pain, So if you know the pain, you can stay in the pain, but if you don't know the pain, this is something else. It might be risky. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, those are really good. That's a really good point. One of the things about doing Jijang Bosal chanting for someone that's died is it gives voice to our pain. I had a friend who had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And it finally became clear that she was going to have a hysterectomy and she would never have a baby. And that was devastating for her. She had really hoped for a family. And so she bought a shadow box. Do you know what that is? Do you know what I'm talking about? She bought a shadow box, and then she began to collect, over a period of weeks and months, little baby items, tiny baby shoes, a piece of baby blanket. She made little tiny doll clothes for baby, knitted little hats, and she began to put all of her hopes and dreams in that shadow box. And one of the things that did was externalized her grief. It gave an embodied movement. It gave movement to her grief. And that's what doing ritual in and around mourning does for us. It gives voice to that grief. So doing Jijang Bosal for 49 days helps us with our sorrow. The ritual of it, I think, is really important. The other thing I want to say too is, Diego brought up the whole thing about question. Like, I don't know I don't know. What's my relationship to this person now, right? The fact is, we don't know what happens after we die. We do Jijang Bosal chanting, but I don't know if we spend time in a bardo or if we, I do know this. My body will rot, or I'll be cremated, and then I'll be something else than I am now, right? So There's a great don't know in and around life and death. You know, all those babies I delivered, where did they come from? Where did their personalities come from? Where did their consciousness come from? You know, we don't know. That's part of our practice, is connecting to that mystery, this great mystery, and celebrating that mystery. You don't have to understand it, but we can connect to it as human beings, right? Every moment is kind of a mystery. My body is made up of earth, fire, air, and water. How is it that I'm even talking to you? Right? How is that possible? It's a mystery. You know, I used to demand of the universe that it give me answers. I want to know. How is this? What is consciousness? What is self? What is this? Right? And through the years of practice, it's been kind of wonderful to not know. To let that question just be there. So Diego talked about connecting to don't know mind, right? This don't know mind. Actually, don't know mind I think of as relational, right? I am because you are, right? Yeah. But this don't know mind is very wide, it's very open. It neither accepts or rejects anything. It just lives with it in that moment. So even in our sorrow, we live with our sorrow. We don't reject it, we don't push it away. Maybe we do the rituals that we need to do to assuage our grief. Get a hug from a friend. Whatever we need. That's all I have to say about that. Is there another question? Yes?
Yeah. I want to share something that's been like arising for me, and maybe you can say a word about it to support me along and other people who relate. Something that's been triggering for me is when I express something to someone that feels vulnerable and true, and like they're really just not present for it. It feels like there's so much ego they didn't even begin to hear it. It's really triggering for me. An example being my mother. I saw her a few days ago, and she asked me like 20 questions about what I'm doing in the next 3 days, and I hadn't even thought about this. And it was agitating me, so I said, "Mom, I haven't even thought of these questions, and so like, maybe you could be in kind of spaciousness with me." And she responded in like a way that was kind of like a little bit backlash, and like she didn't hear me. So that's like, I think that's triggering for me.
Yeah. Weing is the 6th ancestor in our lineage. So he lived a very long time ago. The Platform Sutra is all about Weing. I read something here a couple of days ago, though, that the Platform Sutra isn't true. Like none of it's all made up.
Don't tell anyone.
But, you know, it still has really good teaching in it. And one of the things that he said that really struck me early in my practice was, I don't point my finger at somebody else. I look inside. I look inside myself. So tell me your name. Aiden. Some of the best teachers in my life have been the teachers who've been cruel to me. The people in my life who haven't listened, or the people in my life who have actually done really mean things to me. And it's so easy to point your finger at somebody else and blame them, right? And I did that for many years. But you can also turn that around and look at that behavior and say, yeah, that's not how I want to be. And where am I like that? Because my guess, Aiden, is that you've done the same thing to other people, right? And now you know the hurt that that causes. So you can begin to change your own behavior. And look, turn around and look. How is it? How am I with others? I don't like that when that happens to me. So how can I change myself so that I don't do that to other people? You know, one of the things about Zen practice is a little bit like self-psychotherapy, right? You're sitting on your cushion, and all of these thoughts are going through your head. All the triggers, old hurts, old anger. Oh my gosh. Do you know Radiolab? Do you know this podcast? Isn't it great? They had a whole podcast on how women hold on to anger. How many women in here can relate? Like I can remember a conversation from 40 years ago and get pissed about it. You know? So you sit on your cushion and all of this stuff comes up. And if you hold on to it, you suffer. So I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because it's such a good story. It's such a good illustration of how all that happens, right? So I'm at Kilche 5 years ago and set the whole Kilche, the whole 90 days. And I got into about the third, fourth week. So by this time I'm a little homesick, right? And I'm a little tired of sitting all day long. And in comes, new people come every week. So in comes this person. I'm not going to identify him too much because I don't want anybody to know what to know. But I hated him immediately. He was loud, obnoxious, misogynistic, and I was let me tell you, I was listing it all off. Right? So I'm sitting there in peaceful state, overlooking the pond from the monastery. You know, that monastery's perfect, right? It's Tushita heaven. Anyone can get enlightenment if they go to Diamond Hill Monastery and sit for 90 days. You should try it. But I'm sitting there in this peaceful state, just nitpicking at this guy, right? And then I realized it wasn't just him, but I was criticizing this person and that person. I was nitpicking at that person. Head Dharma teacher isn't doing that right. Moktok master didn't approach the altar correctly. This person takes too much food. That person isn't sitting right. That person moved on his cushion, right? It was all this little niggly stuff going on in my head. And then I realized it wasn't just other people, it was me. I'm a good Zen student, I'm a bad Zen student. I'm not doing this right. I'm not authentic like I should be. Blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff. Yeah, you should well sigh because I did. I couldn't believe it. I've been sitting Zen for 25 years and this is what I get? Right? And so I went for an interview with Zen Master Wukang, who's just such a gentle, wise person. And he said, "How are you doing?" And I burst into tears. And I said exactly what I said to you. I've been sitting this long, and this is what I get. All of this criticalness and this nastiness and all of that is really arising. And you know what he said to me? He said, "At least you're noticing." And just that simple comment really it was like turning on a light switch. Because I realized my whole life I'd been really believing everything I think. Everything. I believed strongly in my emotions. I believed strongly in all my criticisms. I believed, like this self-righteousness. I believed everything I thought. I remember when I was first married, my husband and I were trying to put together recipes, right? So we, ham and beans, that was a big thing when we were first married. But my parents, don't get grossed out by this, but when they made ham and beans, we ate it over bread with vinegar and onion. My husband was appalled at that. And now when I think about it, I kind of am too. But I liked my way, and he liked his cornbread with his bowl of ham and beans, right? And we fought about that because I believed so strongly that my way was the right way. Right? So this was the same thing. It was just this big wake-up call that what I think is correct, what I believe is correct. It's where all the wars come from, right? Dislike and dislike mind. Just notice that. So when you're sitting on your cushion and those kinds of things arise, just notice it. You don't have to judge it. That's not a part of Zen practice either. It's just non-judging. But when you notice it, that's the beginning of detaching from your thoughts. And then when you can not attach to them so strongly, when you can just see them as part of your karma, as part of your conditioning, right? Then you can begin to understand this don't know mind. In our school, we call it before thinking mind. So what are you if you're not your thoughts? Zen Master Sung-san used to say, Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." But if you're not thinking, then what? Right? It's a very good point. If you're not thinking, then what? That's what Zen practice is understanding that point. Understanding your before thinking mind. Oh, thank you for your question. I really went off on a tangent there, didn't I, Aiden? But I hope that was helpful. Yeah. Yes.
And thank you for, I'm pretty loud. Well, I want to thank Diego for sharing such, an intimate pain with us today. Loss is hard, and we all experience it. And I want to thank Aiden for his question. And my question kind of is related to what he discussed. In my work, I have a team of 30 people that I lead, and they're all mad at each other all the time. All the time. Everybody's right. Nobody wants to hear what anybody has to say. And it's my job to somehow get them to work together towards a common goal. And at the hierarchy chain of command, we're a smaller team. And recently, we have just fallen into all of that really baser level emotion of this one's wrong, that one's wrong, we're gonna win, we're not gonna let that one have her way, he's not getting his way, and I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh my God, folks, I'm gonna go in my office and meditate because you're all making me nervous. And I'm really, but it's easy for me to get pulled into that stream with them of, we have the authority, we have the power, they must listen to what we say. Nobody listens to anybody. So I would love to hear more about what you were just sharing with Aiden about how do we not become part of the problem? How do we bring what's here with us when we're surrounded by people who are just caught in all that negative, critical emotion? So, thank you.
Wow, that's a really good question. It's a really good question. Because in essence, it's about bringing the practice into our daily life. Right? And I think that that's a struggle everybody has. You know, I went to church every Sunday when I was a little girl. Well, every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night. Baptist Youth Fellowship. You know, yeah, we were a very religious family. But when church was over, that was the end of it. How do you take your practice when you're dusting or vacuuming? How do you take your practice into doing the dishes? Right? Human beings are harder than dusting furniture. And actually, as you were talking, I was like, kudos to you for leading this group, because I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. Yeah. One of the aspects to Zen practice that I have found so valuable is Daishin called it a strong center. I like the word still point. Right? So when you're sitting, and you're sitting consistently, then there becomes a centeredness to yourself, a centeredness to your life that allows you to see those relationships and not touch them and not get involved in the drama. You know, the very first great vow is sentient beings are numberless, I vow to save them all. And we always think of that as being kind of a tough thing to do. But when you're sitting and you're developing that still point that doesn't get knocked about, right? Then people see that. Your team will see that. You know, what is going on there? And how can I get that centeredness? And I think that that's how we save all beings, is by first sitting and doing our own work on the cushion. Yes, you're going to stumble. What is it? What's the saying? Fall down 8 times, get up once, or something like that. 9. Yeah, get up 9. Yeah, fall down 8 times, get up 9. But let your own practice be really strong. Do you sit every day?
It's been a struggle lately. I'm practicing more often.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you'll find that valuable. And practice with the sangha too. I think, having that discussion. The other thing I was going to say was there's nothing better than a good Dharma friend. Who was it that said that? Do you remember one Ilsunim who said there's nothing better than a good Dharma friend?
Wasn't it the Buddha to Ananda?
Maybe. maybe. So having those relationships and a supportive group that's kind of outside of that, so that you have some place to go and some support for your own practice. Doing it by yourself, I think, again, I'll say it, Zen is relational. So doing it by yourself is harder. You know, having a sangha or having a good Dharma friend is invaluable. Yeah. Just as a practical note, and maybe you can take this with you back into your workplace, but when I was in the clinic and I was doing physical exams on women coming in for their yearly examinations, so when I put my stethoscope on their back to listen to their lungs, then I did breath. I did breathing with them, right? So even just that simple little 30 seconds or 45 seconds was enough to bring me back into the present moment without feeling so scattered. Yeah. So maybe you can find little ways of doing that. Memorize the great Dharani. Anyway. Anything else? Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Are we all set then? Thank you for your talks. And so I have a few announcements. And so we have the kilche that's going on up at the monastery right now. Rebecca Pope Sanim is leading this week. And next week the following week will be somebody else. And so March, you have to do like 1 week. If you're going to do kilche at least 1 week, and you should have experience. You don't want to go up there not having experience. And March 3rd, on March, actually 16th, we're going to have online Christian Buddhist retreat. I believe that's this coming Saturday. It's online. You can register on that at the providencezen.org. We have yoga every other Sunday.
For the next few weeks.
Okay, every other.
Then we'll be back every Sunday.
Okay, good. So every other Sunday now, and then at the end of Kilche, she'll be doing it I guess Daniel and you will be doing this, yeah, and Lisa will be doing the yoga each week after Kilche ends. Wednesday evening we have the public talks. We have public dinner. We have meditation orientation. We have chanting. We have Zen meditation on each Wednesday evening. Please appear for that. Donations are gratefully accepted, and of course electricity is not free, but you can always come here and sit for free, no problem. And so we would welcome your donations. There's a QR code at the entrance. Yes, and so we also have a volunteer program. We have a volunteer list out at the table. And if there's some kind of talent that you have, you can sign up for that. And if you have no talent, that's no problem. Well, we'll give you something to do. And then membership is a way to support the Zen Center. You can find that out also at providencezen.org and become a member, a supporting member each month. Thank you for coming here today, and I hope to see you again. Thank you. There's snacks out here in the dining room. She'll be the first woman, yeah?
I think so, yeah.
DJ 1L. Yeah, there's too much stuff. Yep. But there's no other way.